My name is Haley, and I'm going to be frolicking through the halls. It's a cheerful sentence, innocent, the kind of thing a teenager might say without thinking twice. But today, those words feel haunting because they belong to a girl who never came back home. 17-year-old Haley Busby was described by her family as bright, kind-hearted, and full of plans. College was on her mind, friends were a huge part of her life. She wasn't known as a troublemaker. She wasn't known to run away. And yet, on a cold January night in Indiana, Haley vanished without a trace. At first, nothing about that night seemed dramatic. Haley was last seen by her family late on January 5th inside her home in Fishers, Indiana, a quiet suburban community north of Indianapolis. There were no screams, no forced entry, no obvious signs of danger. When her family woke up, she was simply gone. That's when panic set in. By the evening of January 6th, the police were called to the Busby home. Officers searched nearby streets, knocked on doors, and began canvassing the neighborhood. The first assumption, one that would later prove critical, was that Haley may have left on her own. But something didn't sit right. Teenagers run away sometimes, but this case didn't feel like one of them. As hours turned into days, Haley's disappearance spread across social media. Her photo appeared in shop windows, gas stations, and community boards across Indiana. Friends shared memories, strangers shared prayers. Her father posted daily updates, refusing to let her name fade into silence. Birthdays passed, nights grew colder. Still, no sign of Haley. Behind the scenes, investigators noticed something unusual. Several neighbors mentioned seeing a vehicle they didn't recognize parked in the area the night Haley disappeared. It didn't belong to anyone on the street. It wasn't there regularly. And most importantly, it was there at the exact time Haley was last seen. Police began piecing together a timeline. They concluded that Haley had not been taken by force. There was no struggle, no evidence of abduction. Instead, investigators believe Haley voluntarily got into that car. That realization raised a terrifying question. Why would a teenage girl leave her home late at night to get into a stranger's vehicle? Rehook. The answer wouldn't be found in the streets of Indiana, but online. As days stretched into weeks, the tone of the search began to shift. Hope was still there, but fear was growing louder. Law enforcement expanded their investigation beyond state lines. Federal agencies were contacted, digital footprints were examined. Then, nearly a month after Haley vanished, police stepped in front of microphones with news no family ever wants to hear. Investigators announced they believe Haley Busby was dead. The room fell silent. Her family had already been informed. The community that had prayed, searched, and hoped was now grieving. But police weren't just delivering devastating news. They were also pointing to someone they believed was responsible. A 39-year-old man from Ohio, someone Haley had trusted. Who was this man, and how did he convince a teenage girl to walk out of her home and never return? When police said Haley wasn't kidnapped, many people were confused. How could a teenager vanish across state lines without force? The answer, investigators say, lies in the digital world. According to law enforcement, Haley had been communicating online with a man later identified as Tyler Thomas, a 39-year-old from Ohio. Their connection didn't start through social media or texting. It reportedly began through online gaming platforms. To Haley, it may have felt harmless, a username, a voice through a headset, someone who listened. To investigators, it looked like classic grooming behavior. Rehook. Predators don't always hide in dark alleys. Sometimes they hide behind a screen name. Police believe Thomas drove from Ohio into Indiana on the night Haley disappeared. Surveillance and neighborhood reports placed his vehicle near her home. Investigators later determined that Haley willingly got into his car. At first, Thomas claimed he had done nothing wrong. When police made contact with him in Ohio, he admitted picking Haley up, but told officers he dropped her off on the side of a road in western Ohio. According to him, she simply walked away. But investigators didn't believe that story. Cell phone data, location tracking, and digital evidence quickly exposed inconsistencies. Thomas's timeline didn't match reality, his statements shifted, and soon police determined his original account was false. That's when the case escalated. Multiple agencies joined the investigation, including local police departments, sheriff's offices, and the FBI. Searches were conducted at locations connected to Thomas, including a residence in Columbus and a short-term rental in rural Hocking County, Ohio. What investigators allegedly found would change everything. Inside Thomas's digital devices was evidence no one was prepared for. Court documents later revealed that police recovered explicit images involving a minor from Thomas's phone. According to the criminal complaint, those images allegedly involved Haley. Thomas was arrested and charged in Franklin County, Ohio, where he made his first court appearance. He showed little emotion as he appeared via video from jail. A judge set his bond at $1.5 million, along with strict conditions: no internet access, no contact with minors, and no contact with Haley's family. At this point, Thomas was not yet charged with murder. Instead, prosecutors filed what are often called holding charges, crimes they knew they could immediately prove while the larger investigation continued. But behind the scenes, something even darker was unfolding. According to statements made after the hearing, Thomas allegedly led investigators to Haley's body, which was found in Perry County, Ohio, south of Columbus. Her remains were discovered weeks after she vanished. End rehook. If Thomas led police to her body, what does that say about what really happened after Haley got into that car?
The discovery of Haley Busby's body marked the end of the search, but the beginning of a far more complex legal battle. Authorities believe Haley died within days of leaving her Indiana home. However, police have not publicly released her cause of death. That silence speaks volumes. Investigators confirmed they recovered evidence from both Thomas's vehicle and his residence, supporting their belief that Haley was no longer alive long before the body was found. Despite early claims of cooperation, Thomas's story continued to unravel. Every lie told investigators only made the truth more impossible to hide. Police acknowledged that Thomas initially misled them. Only after continued pressure and mounting evidence did investigators reach the point where Haley's body was located. At the time of his arrest, Thomas was facing 2 serious felony charges: pandering obscenity involving a minor, tampering with evidence. These charges alone carry significant prison time, but prosecutors made it clear more charges were coming.
Jurisdiction quickly became an issue. Haley lived in Indiana. She disappeared there, but investigators believe critical crimes occurred in Hocking County, Ohio, where Thomas had access to a short-term rental. Her body was later found in Perry County, adding a third location to an already complicated case. 3 counties, 2 states, 1 victim. Legal experts explained that prosecutors must determine where the murder legally occurred, as that decision will dictate where Thomas is tried and potentially what penalties he faces. Adding to the mystery was Thomas's background. According to jail records, he listed himself as homeless, yet court documents referenced a high-value property in Columbus tied to the alleged crimes. Investigators believe Thomas may not have owned the home, but had access to it through unknown means. That contradiction raised even more questions. Where was he getting money? Who else may have known what was happening? And was Haley his first victim, or just the first one discovered? As prosecutors prepare for murder charges, Haley's family is fighting for something else, a change that could save future lives. While the public waits for murder charges, prosecutors are playing a strategic game. Legal experts explain that charges involving child sexual abuse material are often the fastest and strongest way to keep a suspect behind bars.
If images are found on a person's device and tied directly to them, convictions are highly likely. In Thomas's case, those charges alone could result in decades in prison, especially if sentences are stacked. Rehook. Sometimes the first charges aren't the biggest, they're the most certain. Prosecutors must also consider where to bring the murder case. Rural counties like Hocking may have fewer resources, but they may also be more willing to pursue harsher penalties. The possibility of federal charges also looms large. Transporting a minor across state lines opens the door to federal jurisdiction and potentially even harsher consequences. As all of this unfolds, Haley's family is left navigating unimaginable grief. Her father shared a video of Haley smiling at the beach, accompanied by a message describing her as loving, compassionate, and full of promise. The words are heartbreaking, not just because of what was lost, but because of what was taken. End rehook. But the Busby family isn't stopping at justice. They want prevention.
In the days after Haley was declared deceased, her family launched a petition calling for a new emergency system, the Pink Alert. Their argument is simple. Haley was initially labeled a runaway. She didn't qualify for an Amber Alert. She wasn't physically abducted, and because of that, critical time may have been lost. What if the system failed Haley, not because it didn't care, but because it didn't fit the rules? The proposed Pink Alert would apply to cases where children or teens are lured, not forced, into dangerous situations. It would trigger faster public notifications and expanded searches. The petition gained tens of thousands of signatures within days. Supporters argue that online grooming is neither a runaway nor a traditional abduction. It's something in between, and it requires new tools. And Haley's case is a chilling example of why.
Experts say cases like Haley's are becoming more common, not because parents don't care, but because the digital world has changed faster than awareness. Children can now communicate with adults anywhere in the world through games, apps, and platforms many parents don't fully understand. To a child, it's just a game. To a predator, it's access. Prosecutors warn that many offenders have no prior criminal record. They blend into society, they wait, and they exploit trust. Haley Busby was not reckless. She was not careless. She was a teenager who trusted the wrong person. As the legal system moves forward, her story stands as a warning and a call for education, awareness, and change. Justice may take time, answers may still come, but Haley's name will not be forgotten.